Hi, it's Lucy, and today I'm here to do my June wrap-up. I read 13 things during the month of June. 6 of them were graphic novels / comics, 1 was a poetry collection, and the remaining 6 were full-length novels. As always, I have a list of the books that I'm going to be talking about in the description, along with timestamps so you can skip ahead or back if you want. And I also have affiliate links if you see a book that you then want to buy. If you use those links, I get a little bit of commission, and also the website that I use goes to supporting indie bookstores. Usually in my wrap-ups, I talk a little bit about how my month was. For the past few months, I haven't been because it's always been bad. We're still in quarantine. This is not my thriving moment. We all know what happened in June. Black Lives Matter movement is still happening. Black lives still matters. I will continue to have links in the description box for petitions and other things that you can do to help and educate yourself. But one objectively good thing that happened this month, personally for me, is that my channel hit 4,000 subscribers. This happened a week ago or so now, I think, but it's never been a good time for me to say something on Twitter or whatever. So now I'm saying something here. Thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. If you subscribed, if you haven't subscribed, you should subscribe, because then next time I celebrate a milestone, you'll be included. But yeah, I want to say thank you. I want to do a Q&A for this milestone. So I'm asking for questions for that future Q&A video. Honestly, I don't know when I'm going to get around to posting it or filming it. But if you have any questions you want me to answer, please leave them in the comments down below of this video. I'll probably make another post on Twitter and a community post asking for questions eventually, if I ever, make time to do things. Anyway, a lot of my new subscribers were gained in the past month or so, so there's a lot of new people here, so I assume you have questions, or maybe not. But if you have questions, or if you're an oldie and you have questions, asking questions, that's the point of this. So those are my announcements. Let's get on to the books. As usual, I will talk about them in chronological order, which is the order that I read them, not the order that they were released, because that would be a weird way to talk about books. I guess not. We're going to the books now. The first book I want to talk to you guys about is The Downstairs Girl by Stacey Lee. What are you doing? Okay. I started this for the Asian readathon in May. I finished this the very beginning of June, so it wasn't I spent all of June reading a book that I started in May. If you end up doing that, that's not a problem. I just wanted to explain myself, and now I'm over-explaining myself. Today is going to be a good filming day. I can feel it. This is about a 17-year-old girl named Jo Kwan, and by day, she's the lady's maid for the cruel daughter of one of the richest people in Atlanta. And by night, Jo is the pseudonymous author of the newspaper column Dear Sweetie. She chooses to use her column to address some of society's ills, as well as give advice based on feminist ideas. And because of this, she's causing an uproar in the community. But since she's anonymous, people are looking for her identity. While this is happening, a mysterious letter sets Jo off to uncover the truth about her parentage after she was abandoned as a baby. This is a historical fiction. It's set in, I forgot what year. I want to say 1920s. Don't touch it! Early 1900s Atlanta. And I thought that was really interesting. I ended up giving this 3.5 stars. I really loved having a young adult historical fiction book set in Atlanta. If you don't know, I've been living in Atlanta for the past 3 years. I didn't grow up learning about Atlanta's history, because in the United States of America, you learn about general U.S. politics, and then you learn more details about your specific state. So yeah, I didn't really learn a lot about Atlanta. So it was good to hear about things that I've become familiar with while living here in a historical context. I also appreciated that we followed the story of a Chinese American girl in the South. Jo is half Chinese, half white, and I feel the story of Asian people in America in historical fiction is often left out, especially in the South. I feel we hear more about the West Coast, but obviously there are people of all races all across the United States, so I appreciated that aspect of the story as well. And I liked hearing about Jo's uncles used informally. I feel a lot of cultures do that, where basically everyone's an uncle and aunt or cousin, even if you're not actually related. So it's kind of like that. And I liked hearing about the cultural customs and the background that all brings to the story. What I was not a huge fan of is this is one of those books where there's not a huge plot. That's not always a problem for me. You can see in past reviews that I've done and past wrap-ups and stuff, I will say, oh, this book doesn't have a plot, but I didn't mind. But in this one, I expected it to be a plot. I feel the synopsis that I gave you guys gives more of a less exciting tone, which is on purpose, because the way that I read the synopsis on Goodreads, I felt like it was implied to be more action-packed. I expected a physical journey when it talked about Jo looking for her parentage. Like, I thought, for some reason in my head, I thought it was going to be like some kind of treasure hunt or something. Not treasure hunt, scavenger hunt. That's what the word I was looking for. So I was expecting more of that, and it really wasn't that. I also expected that the fact that people wanted to know her identity, I thought that would be more important to the story, but I don't really think it was. In my head, I was imagining the story where she's on the run and she's looking for her parents and other people are trying to figure it out, but that's really not at all what the story is. There is talk of some feminist ideas, like I mentioned in the synopsis. The advice Jo gives in her Miss Sweetie column are based on feminist ideas, and Jo tries to join like the local suffragette movement. We're shown a bit of how intersectional feminism comes in, as the white suffragettes don't want to let Jo in or her black friend to like truly help the movement or like reap benefits from the movement, and that was a little bit in there, which I appreciated. I wasn't a huge fan of. I felt like there was like pitting against Chinese and black people in here, which I don't really love. I did enjoy the book overall, because I do like slow-paced things. It just wasn't what I expected as a story, so I was disappointed. Next, I read Giant Days, Volume 1. Yeah? Did you read Giant Days, Volume 1 too? Thank you. This is Tucker. Can you see him? I hope so. This was written by John Allison and illustrated by Lissa Treiman. This is a graphic novel, so I don't have too much to say. This follows a trio of girls who all become friends because they live in the same dorm as they enter their freshman year of college. So I think this starts, they're like a couple weeks in, and we just see like little hijinks ensue. It's a really slice of life story as far as I know about the whole like comic series. It's all just slice of life stories about how they're experiencing college. And I thought it was an enjoyable read. I have no real complaints. I gave it 4 stars. Another graphic novel I read / comic book was Lumberjanes, A Midnight Summer Scheme. This is a one-shot in the Lumberjanes series, which I feel like I've talked about in every wrap-up since May. So if you're interested in like details about that, check out those. But this one follows the girls as they're throwing their Midsummer masquerade, and they find that their decorations keep going missing. I thought the story was super cute. Like all the Lumberjane stories, I gave this 3.5 stars. Honestly, I don't remember why I didn't give it 4 stars. I think it was just like in the context of Lumberjane stories. It felt a little more juvenile than usual, I think, but I still thought it was cute. Next, I read Such a Fun Age by Kiley Reid. So I'm going to read you basically the Goodreads synopsis because I feel like it's very concise. In the midst of a family crisis, one late evening, white blogger Alex Chamberlain calls her African-American babysitter Amira, asking her to take toddler Briar to the local market for distraction. There, the security guard accuses Amira of kidnapping Briar until Briar's father, Alex's husband, comes to the store to explain why this black woman has this white child. The story kind of just follows Amira's life after that event, and we see Alex's life as she is like kind of consumed by the guilt, or not consumed, but she feels so guilty about the incident happening. She keeps trying harder and harder to make it up to Amira. And we see like backstory in Alex's life, Amira's like just friendships and dating life comes into it. It's all very interesting. I gave this 4 stars. So the first thing I want to say is on Goodreads, I usually give books that I've just finished reading, like I rate it and then I write like a 1 sentence or 2 until I come up with like a better review. My original review that I gave this, like right after I finished reading this, was just, white people are weird. And that got the most likes that any of my Goodreads reviews have ever gotten. To expand on, white people are weird. I really like this. I really think that this book takes on the idea of white guilt and benevolent racism really well. And there's sort of a sneaky discussion, although it's not really sneaky, I think. I think if you're paying attention, you'll see it, of the idea of black mammies and the concept of it's often black women will become nannies to rich white women, and the dynamics and optics of that family dynamic. I thought that was really interesting and made me think of when I used to work in the Upper West Side of New York City. Beyond the white people, I just thought the story was really great. I thought the writing style was very readable and the story was engaging. I've seen some negative reviews of the writing style. A lot of people thought it was too plain, but I don't need all my stories to be full of metaphor, and the plainness of the book's writing style is what makes it so readable. So I did not mind at all. I thought it was fine. I also really appreciated the discussion around being kind of lost in life. In this book, Amira is 25. I think she just turned 25 or just turned 26. Sorry, I forgot. And she's, has this job as a nanny. She's also working 2 days a week as a typist. She feels behind in life, but she doesn't have super grand aspirations. She just wants a job with health insurance. And so I think it's really powerful that Amira's a Black main character who's okay to be content in life as long as she can afford the lifestyle that she wants to lead, which isn't anything extravagant. Like I said, she just wants health insurance. Amira doesn't want to be the next Black CEO, and that's fine. And I think we need to see that more. A lot of times in fiction, when the main character is Black, we see them as downtrodden, and the book is about rising above that, or they're already nearly superhuman, the stereotype, the mom, CEO, all of those things. And it's okay to just want to be a normal person. We're just people. Not every Black person has to be superhuman. Maybe that's just something personal for me that I've been dealing with a lot. It was nice to read in this book. In conclusion, I liked it. I think you should read it. I think if you're white, you should read it because I think it will make you uncomfortable. It made me uncomfortable at sometimes, for the white characters, but I think it does it in a way that is humorous and will still make you think. So I would like Kiley Reid to hurry up and write her next book because I'm looking forward to reading it. The Stars and the Blackness Between Them by Junauda Petris. We follow two main characters, 16-year-old Audrey, who's Trinidadian and lives with her mom in Trinidad until her mom, who's homophobic, finds Audrey with another girl, and then she decides to send her to live with her father in America. And the other main character is Mabel, whose parents just happen to be good friends with Audrey's dad. And Mabel is trying to understand the feelings that she's had for this girl she knows, all while she's had a vague feeling of illness all summer. So the two characters meet and the story goes on from there. This story has a trigger warning for terminal illness and homophobia. I don't feel like that's a spoiler, but I saw a couple of reviews where people had to DNF the book because they did not realize how bad the illness would be. So I want to put that out there, because I also didn't realize how bad it would be, and I think it's a very heavy thing that people should be prepared to go into when they read this. This was on track to be 5 stars. I really, really enjoyed the story, but I really didn't like the ending. I thought it was very confusing and it was very disappointing to me. I originally gave it 4 stars, but I think I'm just gonna bump it up to 4.5 stars because the rest of the story was so amazing. It was just the ending that really disappointed me. I thought the writing was done beautifully, especially the descriptions of feelings. There's lots of talk about love because these are about 2 girls coming to terms with their feelings for women, and also their acceptance of that, and also their descriptions of physical bodies, because there's a love story and but not even love stories. People are described in non-sexual ways or anything, but it's just the way that their bodies are described. I feel like I'm not describing this well. Admittedly, at first I did have a hard time reading this physically because Audrey's perspective is written in Trinidadian Creole, but listening to the audiobook, I thought, first of all, the audiobook was very well done, and listening to people speak is usually easier than reading accents, so I ended up not having an issue there. I do want to note that the Trinidadian Creole has been criticized for not being completely accurate by Trinidadian people, specifically Sajid from Books Are My Social Life here on YouTube, and his video will be linked down below where he talks more about that. This book dealt with some topics that I didn't expect it to. We see Mabel come to terms with the idea of dying young, and through that, this book also manages to tie in the US criminal justice system and the unjust incarceration of Black people, all while dealing with the main characters coming to terms with their sexualities and their feelings for each other, and like I mentioned, death. The entire story felt so heartfelt. I felt so deeply for each character we were introduced to. We see the good familial relationships that each of the characters have. We see their friendships outside of each other, and relationships that they've had previously. I thought those were described so well. The parental relationships, even though Audrey's mother is homophobic and is not supportive of her, her grandmother is very supportive of her. You can see the love that they have for each other. It's potent. And we get to see Audrey truly get to know her father, because before she moved to America, she was only seeing him once or twice a year. We also get to see Mabel's parents, who are in a happy relationship. We see their love for each other and the love they have for their children. And yeah, there are just so many great things about the story. Unfortunately for me, how a story ends really affects my view of a book. So to me, the ending just didn't fit. It felt really abrupt and employed too much of a sort of magicalness to me. Like, the story throughout is magical-ish, like more in description, not really in things that happen. So yeah, I didn't like the ending. But overall, I do really enjoy the story. If you can go into it knowing that I didn't love the ending. Some people didn't mind the ending, some people liked the ending, so keep that in mind. I did really enjoy the overall story, and I would recommend it for that. Next, we have A Song Below Water by Bethany C. Morrow. This is a very low urban fantasy that follows two characters. Tavia, who's forced to keep her siren identity under wraps because she lives in a society that wants to keep her kind under lock and key. And she's also stuck in Portland, Oregon, where there is very few black folks and even fewer magical black. And we also follow her best friend, Effie, who's dealing with demons of her own. We follow them as everything changes after a siren murder trial rocks the nation. So first, thank you to Tortine for the arc I received via NetGalley. This book has a trigger warning for a suicide attempt, and I don't really know how to describe this. I don't even know if it needs a trigger warning exactly, but basically it's like a misuse of a disability. One of the characters claims that she has a disability that she does not have, and she's like using it as a cover, so I'm not sure what that falls under. Something about that does rub me the wrong way, but I don't know. I don't have a disability, so I don't know, but I did want to mark it. I gave this book 3.5 stars. There were things that I liked and things that I didn't like. Things that I liked, Tavia and Effie as characters, I enjoyed both of them. It is a dual perspective, so one chapter from Tavia, one chapter from Effie, and we go back and forth like that. And I really liked both of their perspectives. I adored their close friendship. You could see in their friendship how they viewed each other truly as sisters. They are sort of raised as sisters. Effie has been living with Tavia's family for I think it's 3 years by the time this novel starts, and so they treat each other as such, and you can really feel the love that they have for each other. I like the process of reading the story. It's kind of like a mystery because there are some things you don't know and you really want to know, and so I enjoyed the process of learning about that. I thought the writing on a sentence structure level was fine. I had no problems with that. I was thoroughly engaged by the plot. I did guess one twist, but not the full extent of it, and there was sort of a romantic thing going on, not between the two characters, because like I said, they see each other as sisters, but one of the characters and someone else has a sliver of a romance, and I thought that was cute, even if it might have been a little rushed. I also liked, and this is the big point of the story, that there was a discussion of misogynoir. That is basically the whole point of this story, to discuss misogynoir. If you don't know what that is, a bare bones definition, I guess, would be just the intersection of the way Black women specifically experience misogyny. Don't think I'm great at giving definitions, but Google is free if you want to look it up. And so I was really appreciative to see a discussion of that so blatantly in YA. So things that I was not a fan of, the mythology aspect of the story was not very well explained in my opinion. If you're going into this expecting more discussion about the magic in the society or the mythical creatures, it's really not about that. You're really not going to get that. There are really only 2 main magical creatures, and then we're introduced to a couple more that we don't know a whole lot about. So the main magical creatures are sirens and ilocos. I still don't know what an iloco does, what it is. I did not think it was explained very well. It seems like an obscure kind of mythical creature, so it would have been nice to have that mythology in the story, really. And the other 2 magical creatures, you really don't get any information about them. Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of that. Character-wise, while I did enjoy the 2 main characters, there were parents in the story. I thought they were all terrible. I did not enjoy any of the parents. I don't think that the fact that the parents were terrible was dealt with enough. I've read, recently especially, read a bunch of stories where the younger characters are realizing that their parents are human and not perfect, which I think is fine, and I think that's definitely something that should be told in the story, but I think there's a level where if your parents cause you and other people literal years of trauma, I think more than an I'm sorry is needed, and that's kind of what we got in the story, in my opinion. I also found the whole ending pretty rushed. The first 2/3 of the story were pretty slowly and evenly paced, which I was fine with, I was enjoying. But then so many things were packed into the last third that it did end up feeling very rushed. So this is something outside of what I liked and what I didn't like. It's just something that was marinating in my mind while I was reading it, and so I wanted to talk about it. Like I said in the beginning of this review, is this a review? I don't know. The book discusses misogynoir through Tavia, a siren, but I'm just not sure that sirens were the best way to go about this. I also mentioned, that if you're looking for a story about mythological creatures, this is really not it. Tavia being a siren was really just a vehicle for the book to discuss misogynoir, but in this book, sirens seem to have like a low-grade form of mind control, which is scary. Like, the reason they're oppressed, I don't think anyone should be oppressed, but it kind of makes sense, and that's not how like misogynoir or like racism or sexism work in real life. The people who are oppressed in real life don't have magical powers. Like, yeah, black girl magic is like a saying, but we can't actually, like, I can't shoot lightning from my fingertips or anything. Like, I can't do anything more or less than another human. So it doesn't feel like quite right. I don't know if I'm making any sense. I do talk about it in my Goodreads review if you want to read that, and I make references to other things. The book discusses how Siren's oppression is compounded by the fact that they are almost exclusively black women. It's like another layer on top of being a black woman. And I think that there was meant to be a dichotomy between Sirens and Ilocos to represent that, like, the reason Sirens are oppressed is because they're black women, but I'm not sure because, like I mentioned, the mythology aspect wasn't that great, and I still don't really know what Ilocos can do. All I know about them is they have a bell. Their voice sounds interesting, but I don't know if that compels people to do anything. I don't know what they can do. So I don't think that really worked for me. Obviously, other books have done this where they have, like, the oppressed be, like, an otherworldly person, creature, someone who does, like, have more physical power than the oppressors. So I don't want it to seem like I'm picking on this book for that. I think it was just because I read it literally like right after the protests started. So I had it like very much in the forefront of my mind. And the story takes place in a setting so close to our world. Normally when we have this like oppressor dichotomy, like with magic users and non-magical users, it's in like a fantasy story, very separate from our world. So I can compare it to our world, and I do compare it to our world, but it's not so close to me, you know? I think that's what made it come up in my head over and over while I was reading this. And I don't know, clearly I'm nervous about saying this, but I would probably read, like, I know one of my favorite series has this thing in it. So I can't really tell you why it doesn't bother me in this and bothers me in that. I don't know. So it could just be that I just never thought of it, and that now that I've thought of it here, then every book forward is going to be ruined by this thought. I don't know. But I just wanted to share that with you, and I probably will read other books with this dichotomy. I definitely will, actually, because, like I said, so many books have it. I don't know, and I don't know if I'll keep getting mention of it, but this is the first time I really thought about it. So I wanted to share it. This is not in any way to dissuade you from reading this book. Like I said, I gave it 3.5 stars. There were really good aspects of it, and I did think the like actual discussion of misogynoir was very well done. I did feel for the characters and everything. This was just, thoughts that I had. I enjoyed the story, and I want to encourage others to read it. This was just the culmination of conflicting feelings that I've had about this type of story for reasons that I just explained. Next, I read Bingo Love by T. Franklin and illustrated by Jenn St-Onge. This follows the romance of two women who, when they first reveal their feelings when they're teenagers in the 1960s, are torn apart due to society and their families. And so we see them get a second chance at love later on in life when they're in their like 50s or 60s, after they've had like families of their own. This is a graphic novel. I gave this 3.5 stars. I thought this was a cute story, and I really liked seeing the second chance aspect of a queer love story, especially for queer women of color. One of the women is Black, and one of them is Latinx. And I liked seeing that story, but ultimately it did feel rushed, and it read a little awkwardly at times. Like some of the dialogue was kind of awkwardly written. Another graphic novel, The Lost Carnival, a Dick Grayson graphic novel. This is a one-shot that takes place before Dick Grayson becomes Robin, before he meets Batman. He's still at Haley's Circus. And so the circus is running, and then a new carnival sets up shop right across the way from them. And obviously the circus is annoyed that their carnival is taking their business. Dick is for some reason drawn to the carnival and wants to learn more about it. And he's starting to think something magical could be going on. This was a cute story. This is kind of like a romance story a little bit, but it has other things going on. Potentially a little known fact, unless you knew me in high school, but I love Dick Grayson. He is my favorite DC Comics character. Since I was maybe 14, that's when I started getting into DC Comics. I've kind of fallen out of it. I kind of want to get back into it, but then sometimes I don't. That's another story. So obviously I jumped at the chance to read this. Oh, I received this as an ARC. Thank you to Kelly for giving me this ARC to review. I forgot that I did that. So to use fan fiction terms, I read this as an AU one-shot. So I enjoyed it. If it's meant to be real canon, if they're like rebooting Dick Grayson based on this, I don't think it works. This Dick is a little bit more abrasive than the Dick I know. Yeah, his characterization is just like a little bit different, but I still enjoyed the story. And if you don't know Dick Grayson at all, like, I could recommend it. Probably I would recommend just reading the regular Batman comics. Not Batman, but like something in the regular continuity. The art style I wasn't a huge fan of. I don't love this two-toned art style that I see like a lot of newer comics doing, where it's basically like 2 or 3 colors and like 1 color is for dimension and everything, but I don't really like it. If I find screenshots, I'll put them in here. And like I mentioned, the romance went a little quickly for my taste, but it kind of makes sense based on who the characters were, so it was fun, and I thought it was a cute read. Teen Titans Raven, written by Garcia, with art by Gabriel Picolo. When a tragic accident takes the life of 17-year-old Raven's foster mother and Raven's memory, she moves to New Orleans to live with her foster mother's sister and finish her senior year of high school. This is a good start to this series. I don't know if they're rebooting Teen Titans. I don't really know what's going on, but I know that the next one is Beast Boy, so I look forward to that one. This story also has a two-tone art style that I'm not a fan of, but other than that, the actual like written story I thought was interesting. I kind of know some of Raven's story because, like I mentioned, I read a lot of Teen Titans and I've seen the Teen Titans TV show, but I thought it was like a nice newer take on it, I guess, and I enjoyed it. Homie by Danez Smith. This is a poetry collection by a Black, queer, non-binary author, and this explores these facets of their identity and so much more. I feel like I can't do it justice with my review, so I'm just going to recommend you read it. I ended up giving this 4 stars. This explores Danez's experience of being Black and queer, being diagnosed as HIV positive, and the absolute joy of Black friendships. Like, just the way that they write, like, is so powerful. And Black friendships is the theme, the title, Homie. This book is so much for Black people, but they are like giving everyone kind of a window in how they think, and it's so beautiful. I feel like I cannot describe it, but it's really good. I recommend it, and I look forward to reading more of their work. And the last book that I read during the month of June, yes, this wrap-up was so long, is Just for Clicks by Mcdowell. This follows twin sisters whose mom runs like a mommy blog. Like, she posts like pictures of them living their lives, and you know, like a mommy blog, you've seen it. So the main character, Claire, is one of the twins, and she hates it. She hates that her whole life is online, while her twin sister, Poppy, loves it, and she's ready to become like a superstar. So we follow Claire during her senior year of high school as she's trying to leave the blogging world for good, and some other stuff comes up and we learn about it. I thought this was a fun read. There was a twist towards the second half of the book that I was not a huge fan of, but it did make the story very interesting, so there's that. There is a romance in here. It's pretty slow burn, and honestly, I thought it was pretty cute. I wasn't a huge fan of Claire and Poppy's relationship, the sisterly relationship. Their closeness didn't seem real, if that makes sense. And I was not a huge fan of their relationship with their mom, because I thought this would more examine the whole mommy blog thing. And I think it does, but I think it lets the mom off too easily. Like, I don't have completely the answer, I guess. It has that whole idea that a lot of people have issues with, especially like on YouTube. There's like the whole family blogger thing. And basically you're using your kids' lives to support your own life, which can have a negative effect on the kids. And this one did have a negative effect on Claire, but it didn't seem like it was really dealt with that well, in my opinion. Like, I think forgiveness was granted too easily, and they didn't really reflect on like why Claire was having the feelings she did about it. So yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of that. But overall, I had an enjoyable time reading it. It was like a pretty quick read, and like it was just fun to read. So if you're interested in the idea, I'd recommend it. Those are all the books that I read in June. This was a long one. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up in the comments down below. Let me know if you have read any of these books, what was your favorite book that you read in June, or anything else you want to let me know. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you'll be notified every time I post a video. And follow me on my Twitter, Goodreads, and/or Instagram. Again, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!